Pirates were healthier than most kings and nobles of their time. While royal courts suffered from mysterious bleeding gums and rotting teeth, sea criminals thrived for months at sea. What did lawless pirates know about nutrition that the world's most educated physicians completely missed? The 1600s and 1700s weren't exactly the golden age of healthcare. No antibiotics, no vitamins in bottles, and definitely no WebMD to diagnose your mysterious rash. Yet somehow, pirates, those supposed lawless rogues of the sea, managed to crack one of the deadliest medical mysteries of their time. Here's the thing about life on the open ocean. It wanted to kill you in about 50 different ways. Storms could snap your mast like a toothpick. Enemy cannons could turn your ship into driftwood. But the biggest killer? A disease so sneaky that it crept up on sailors like a cat burglar in the night. Scurvy. This wasn't some minor inconvenience like seasickness or sunburn. We're talking about a condition that made your teeth fall out, turned your gums into bleeding messes, and left grown men too weak to climb rigging. Your skin would bruise at the slightest touch, old wounds would reopen, and eventually you'd just die. Pleasant stuff, really. Naval records from this era tell a grim story. More sailors died from scurvy than from all the dramatic stuff you see in movies. Cannon battles, sword fights, and hurricanes combined. The British Royal Navy lost entire crews to this invisible enemy. One voyage might start with 200 healthy men and limp back to port with barely 50 survivors. But here's where it gets interesting, and honestly, a bit embarrassing for the civilized naval forces of the time. While official Navy ships were floating hospitals of dying men, pirate crews seemed to have figured out something the Admiralty hadn't. Pirates were outlasting the very Navy sent to hunt them down. Think about that for a second. These weren't educated doctors or trained nutritionists. Most pirates couldn't even read, let alone understand complex medical theories. Yet they were solving a problem that stumped the brightest minds in Europe's medical establishments. The irony was thicker than ship's biscuit porridge. Here were the criminals of the sea, supposedly living rough and lawless lives, while the respectable Navy boys were dropping like flies from a disease that pirates rarely seemed to get. What made this even more remarkable was the sheer length of pirate voyages. These weren't quick coastal raids. We're talking about months at sea, crossing entire oceans, with no chance to dock at friendly ports for fresh supplies. Yet somehow, pirate crews maintained their strength and health through journeys that would devastate regular naval expeditions. The secret wasn't in some mystical pirate magic or superior genetics. It wasn't because they were tougher or more resistant to disease. The answer was actually sitting right under everyone's noses, or should I say, right in their food stores. What pirates had stumbled upon was essentially nature's own pharmacy, hidden in plain sight among items that most people considered either exotic luxuries or simple preserves. You know what's absolutely hilarious about pirates? These guys were accidentally health gurus before anyone even knew what a vitamin was. While the rest of the world was dying from scurvy like flies in winter, pirates were munching on limes like they were candy bars. Here's the kicker. They had no clue what vitamin C even meant. The term wouldn't be coined for another 200 years. But somehow, these rum-soaked sea bandits figured out that certain yellow and green fruits could literally save their lives. Talk about stumbling into genius. Citrus fruits became more precious than Spanish gold on pirate ships. Well, maybe not more precious than gold, let's be realistic here, but they were definitely fighting for second place. Captains would guard barrels of limes and lemons like they were the crown jewels, and for good reason. One rotten batch could mean the difference between conquering merchant vessels and becoming fish food. But here's where it gets interesting. The British Navy eventually caught on to this citrus secret, which is exactly how British sailors earned the nickname limeys. Makes sense, right? Though I bet those pirates were probably calling them much worse names during actual battles. The real challenge wasn't just getting citrus fruits, it was keeping them fresh during those endless months at sea. Imagine trying to preserve delicate fruit in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, with salt spray everywhere and temperatures that could cook an egg on the deck. These pirates had to become fruit preservation experts whether they liked it or not. They developed some pretty clever storage techniques too, wrapping individual fruits in cloth, storing them in cool, dry parts of the ship's hold, and rotating supplies so nothing went completely rotten. Some crews even assigned specific pirates to fruit duty. Probably the most important job nobody wanted to admit caring about. And the weird part is, this wasn't just about preventing scurvy. Pirates needed every advantage they could get. Strong teeth for tearing through tough ship biscuits, steady hands for sword fighting and cannon loading, clear thinking for outsmarting naval forces. All of that depended on staying healthy, and citrus was their secret weapon. The irony is beautiful when you think about it. These lawless rebels were practicing better medicine than most doctors of their time. While fancy physicians on land were still bleeding patients and prescribing mercury for everything, pirates were preventing a deadly disease with fruit salad. Then there's the fact that many merchant ships they attacked were probably carrying citrus cargo. Talk about a win-win situation. Steal the treasure and grab some health insurance at the same time. But citrus wasn't their only trick. These crafty sea dogs had discovered something even more ingenious that could last for months without spoiling. Now here's where pirates got really clever. And I'm talking next-level food science before anyone even knew what food science was. While citrus fruits were fantastic, they had one major problem. They rotted faster than a pirate's reputation in polite society. Fresh limes might last a few weeks at best before turning into mushy, moldy disappointments. Pirates needed something that could survive months at sea without going bad. Enter fermentation, nature's own preservation magic trick. Smart pirates discovered that when you let cabbage sit in salt water for a while, something amazing happens. It turns into sauerkraut, and somehow this tangy, pickled mess could prevent scurvy just as well as fresh fruit. Better yet, it lasted for months without spoiling. The Germans had been making sauerkraut for centuries, but pirates turned it into their secret weapon against disease. One barrel of properly fermented cabbage could keep an entire crew healthy during a 3-month voyage across the Atlantic. That's like carrying a pharmacy in your pantry. But wait, there's more to this fermentation story. Pirates weren't just randomly throwing vegetables into barrels and hoping for the best. They figured out that the fermentation process actually creates vitamin C while preserving the food. We know this now, but back then, pure trial and error mixed with desperate necessity. Think about it this way. Fermented foods are like the ultimate meal prep for people who might not see land for half a year. No refrigeration needed, no fancy storage requirements, just good old-fashioned beneficial bacteria doing their job. Some crews got so good at fermentation that they'd experiment with different vegetables. Pickled onions, fermented carrots, even preserved seaweed when they could get it. The ship's hold became like a science lab, except instead of beakers and test tubes, they had barrels and brine. And here's the kicker. These accidental food scientists were creating probiotics centuries before anyone knew what gut health meant. While landlubbers were dealing with all sorts of digestive issues, pirates were inadvertently keeping their stomachs happy with beneficial bacteria. The really funny part? Many of these tough, sword-wielding sea criminals probably complained about eating smelly cabbage water while it was literally saving their lives. Imagine complaining about the taste of something that's preventing your teeth from falling out and your energy from disappearing. Pirates also learned that fermented foods worked better in combination with other preserved items. A bit of sauerkraut here, some pickled vegetables there, maybe a splash of fermented fruit juice mixed with their rum. Well, speaking of mixing things with rum and other creative preservation methods, but fermentation was just one piece of their survival puzzle. These seafaring rogues had developed an entire system of food preservation that went way beyond just pickled cabbage. You know what's funnier than a pirate afraid of a parrot? A pirate more terrified of running out of salt than facing the Royal Navy. But here's the thing. That fear actually kept them alive. While everyone thinks pirates just stuffed their ships with gold and rum, the smart ones were hoarding something far more valuable, properly preserved food. We're talking about salted fish that could outlast a marriage and dried meats tougher than a mother-in-law's pot roast. Salting wasn't just about making food last longer. Those crusty old sea dogs accidentally discovered they were preserving nutrients too. When you salt fish properly, you're basically creating a vitamin C time capsule. Fresh fish? Gone bad in days. Salted fish? Still fighting scurvy after months of rolling around in a ship's belly. The process was brilliantly simple. Pirates would layer fish with coarse sea salt, the same stuff surrounding their ship for thousands of miles. Talk about convenience. The salt sucked out moisture like a gossip neighbor extracting secrets, creating an environment where scurvy-causing bacteria couldn't survive. But here's where it gets interesting. Different crews had different techniques passed down like family recipes. Some pirates swore by dry salting their catch immediately after hauling it aboard. Others preferred wet brining, soaking their fish in saltwater barrels for weeks. Then there's the meat situation. Pirates weren't just salting fish, they were preserving everything that moved. Beef, pork, even the occasional chicken that survived long enough to become dinner rather than entertainment. These preserved meats retained enough nutrients to keep grown men from developing the telltale signs of scurvy, bleeding gums, and wobbly teeth. The really clever pirates figured out combination preservation. They'd salt their meat, then smoke it over fires made from whatever wood they could find. This double whammy approach created provisions so durable they could survive storms that would make modern sailors seasick just thinking about them. Storage was an art form too. A ship's hold wasn't exactly climate controlled. These preserved foods had to withstand tropical heat, freezing cold, and humidity that would make a sauna jealous. Yet properly salted provisions could last 6 months or more without turning into something resembling shoe leather. What's remarkable is how this preservation method spread throughout pirate fleets. Word traveled fast when crews discovered techniques that kept them healthy and fighting ready. A ship full of scurvy-ridden pirates couldn't exactly intimidate merchant vessels when half the crew couldn't stand upright. The beauty of salted provisions was their reliability. Fresh fruit might rot, fermented foods might spoil if stored wrong, but salt-preserved foods? They were the Nokia phones of pirate nutrition. Nearly indestructible. Speaking of indestructible remedies, you won't believe what pirates discovered growing right along the coastlines they raided. Nature had been hiding a scurvy cure in plain sight. Who would have thought that the secret to beating scurvy might be hanging right above your head in a pine tree? Well, pirates certainly didn't see it coming at first. Here's where things get interesting. When European pirates found themselves stuck on unfamiliar coastlines, maybe after a storm or while hiding from authorities, they discovered something remarkable. The indigenous people living along these shores had been using pine needles as medicine for centuries. Talk about being fashionably late to the party. But why pine needles? Turns out these prickly little green spears pack more vitamin C than you'd find in most citrus fruits. A single cup of pine needle tea contains about 4 to 5 times the vitamin C of a fresh lemon. Not bad for something that literally grows on trees, right? The preparation was surprisingly simple. Pirates would collect fresh pine needles, preferably from younger branches since they're more tender and less bitter. Then they'd boil them in seawater or fresh water for about 10 to 15 minutes. The result? A tea that tasted like Christmas morning but worked like liquid gold against scurvy. Now, I'll admit, pine needle tea isn't exactly what you'd call a gourmet experience. It's got this sharp, resinous flavor that makes your mouth pucker faster than a sailor's kiss goodbye. But desperate times call for desperate measures, and scurvy-threatened pirates weren't exactly in a position to be picky about their beverages. The indigenous knowledge that saved countless pirate lives came from tribes across North America, Scandinavia, and Northern Asia. These communities had been brewing pine needle remedies long before anyone understood what vitamin C was. They knew it prevented that strange disease that made teeth fall out and turned strong men into weak shadows of themselves. What made this discovery even more valuable was its accessibility. Unlike citrus fruits that spoiled quickly or required specific storage conditions, pine trees were everywhere along northern coastlines. A clever pirate crew could literally walk into a forest and emerge with enough scurvy-fighting material to last weeks. Some enterprising pirates even learned to dry the needles, preserving them for longer voyages. Dried pine needles kept their vitamin content reasonably well and took up minimal storage space, a crucial consideration when every inch of a ship's hold mattered. The cultural exchange wasn't always peaceful, of course, but when it came to survival, pirates quickly learned to respect and adopt local wisdom. After all, indigenous peoples had been thriving in these environments for generations, while European sailors were dropping like flies from preventable diseases. This herbal hack represented something bigger than just another remedy. It showed how desperation could break down cultural barriers and create unexpected partnerships. But pine needles weren't the only surprising alliance pirates formed in their fight against scurvy. Their own crew members became the ultimate secret weapon. Prevention wasn't just smart thinking for pirates. It was pure survival instinct. Like a modern CEO checking quarterly reports, seasoned captains knew that scurvy could sink their entire operation faster than any rival crew or unexpected hurricane. But here's where pirates got clever. They turned health maintenance into a crew ritual that actually worked. Captains made sure every last drop of citrus juice, every scrap of fermented cabbage, and every precious herb got distributed fairly among the men. Nobody hoarded the good stuff, not even the captain's inner circle. Why? Well, a weak crew member wasn't just dead weight. He was a liability who couldn't haul ropes, aim cannons, or swing a cutlass when things got messy. Pirates needed everyone operating at full capacity, like a well-oiled machine where every gear mattered. The smart crews developed what we'd call today early warning systems. Crude health checks became routine. Pirates would examine each other's gums for telltale bleeding, watch for unusual fatigue, and keep an eye out for the dreaded loose teeth that signaled scurvy's arrival. Then there's the ingenious way they made medicine go down easier. Pirates weren't exactly known for their refined palates, but even these rough-and-tumble sailors found fermented vegetables and sour citrus pretty harsh. Their solution? Mix everything with rum or whatever sugar they could get their hands on. Makes sense, right? If you're going to choke down bitter pine needle tea or sour sauerkraut juice, might as well add some kick to it. Pirates essentially invented the world's first medicinal cocktails, though theirs packed a lot more punch than your average health smoothie. And the weird part is how seriously they took dental care. Strong teeth weren't just about looking intimidating during boarding parties. Pirates needed those choppers for tearing tough salted meat, cracking nuts, and sometimes even holding rope or tools when both hands were busy. Losing teeth to scurvy was like losing essential equipment. But prevention went deeper than just food distribution. It became part of pirate culture itself. Maintaining crew health meant maintaining power, morale, and most importantly, loyalty. A captain who let his men waste away from scurvy would find himself facing mutiny faster than he could say, walk the plank. The successful pirate crews treated scurvy prevention like military strategy. Every decision about food storage, rationing, and trading with coastal villages factored in the crew's nutritional needs. They couldn't afford to ignore it. Of course, none of this prevention magic happened by accident. Behind every healthy pirate crew were the unsung heroes who made it all work. The cooks, quartermasters, and ship surgeons who turned basic ingredients into life-saving meals through sheer creativity and determination. Behind every legendary pirate crew sailing the Caribbean were some seriously unsung heroes. Not the swashbuckling captains or the cannon masters. I'm talking about the ship's cook, the quartermaster, and that one guy everyone called Doc, even though his medical training consisted of watching other people not die. These were the real MVPs of maritime health management. Take the ship's cook, for instance. This wasn't some culinary school graduate whipping up gourmet meals. This was usually a grizzled sailor who'd lost a leg or an eye and got reassigned to galley duty. But here's the thing. These cooks became accidental nutritionists centuries before that was even a job title. They'd stretch those precious citrus supplies like a Depression-era grandmother making a chicken last a week. Well, maybe that's exactly what they were doing. The quartermaster? Now, there's a position that doesn't get enough credit. While everyone thinks quartermasters just divided up treasure, they were actually running the world's first floating pharmacy. They decided who got the last lime, when to break out the sauerkraut, and whether that barrel of pickled vegetables was worth more than its weight in silver. Makes sense when you think about it. Dead pirates don't spend treasure. Then there were the pirate surgeons, and I use the term surgeon very loosely here. These were guys who learned medicine the hard way, by trying everything and seeing what worked. Got scurvy symptoms? Try this seaweed tea. Gums bleeding? Here's some pine needle juice mixed with rum. Teeth falling out? Well, everyone's teeth were falling out anyway, so let's call that Tuesday. But the weird part is they were surprisingly effective. They'd use dried herbs like medieval pharmacists, citrus scraps like precious medicine, and even seawater rinses that somehow helped. It was like watching your grandfather fix a car with duct tape and pure stubbornness. It shouldn't work, but somehow it did. Let's not forget the trading aspect either. Smart pirates didn't just steal treasure. They traded for fresh supplies whenever they hit a coastal village. A few silver coins for a basket of limes was better business than losing half your crew to scurvy. Some crews even became regular customers at certain ports, like the world's first floating health food store customers. These practical problem solvers kept crews functioning through months of oceanic isolation. They turned survival into an art form, balancing nutrition with whatever resources they could scrounge, steal, or negotiate for. Their success wasn't just about avoiding disease, it was about maintaining a fighting force. Because in the golden age of piracy, your crew's health was your competitive advantage. A ship full of strong, healthy pirates could outfight, outrun, and outlast anyone foolish enough to challenge them on the high seas.